All right, are we ready?
We're ready. We'll wait while she gets this started.
Say that again?
Go ahead, I was telling him.
Okay, so when you work with Italian ice, sometimes you need sugar, or not, sorry, scratch that. Sometimes you need water and sometimes you don't. With this recipe, we don't need water, we're just gonna use straight juice. If you're working with whole juices like a pineapple juice, an orange juice, things like that that aren't diluted with water, like a lemonade, that's already pre-made in a bottle and it's diluted down. It doesn't work very well. It's very very bland, and then you're gonna have to add more lemon anyways. I like to buy, when I work with juices, like an example, this one, it's unfiltered apple juice. You can buy the juicy juice if you want, if that's your preference, but this is just straight pureed and straight pure apple juice, nothing else added to it, so that definitely helps. Now, Tyranny syrup is a big player in the ice cream and Italian ice game. I'll pass this around a little bit so you can see it. I actually picked this up at Marshall's. So believe it or not, it's very common. You can find it in Walmart sometimes, in places like Ross and Marshall's and things like that. And then, of course, you could buy it at like restaurant depots. So this is a syrup, and this is an extract. There are times where you want to use an extract and sometimes for a syrup. When you're working with Italian ices, it's really good to use a syrup. To me, it's a syrup. It's got a texture to it, even though it's kind of clear looking, but it's more bold. It's got a more flavor. It can hold itself better than an extract. An extract, you do a little couple ounces, versus this, you're going to need like 2 cups worth at least. And that gives your Italian ice a body, and it gives it better flavor. All right, so we need how much juice? How much juice? All right. And here we go. So while Jeff was making his ice cream, I had actually gone in the back, in the other kitchen, and hand-peeled apples and put them in some lemon water so they didn't brown. And then I just pureed them with a little bit of Tyranny syrup. You can puree it with apple juice if you want to, whichever. Now, I know we talked about how you don't need, look at that, I only needed these. You don't need to add them all together first and then put them into the machine, because the machine can do it. But when you work with sugar, it's best if you add it to your water that you're using or your juice. You don't have to, but we just suggest it. Reason is because sugar acts like sandpaper. So when you pour it straight into the machine, your blades are gonna scrape that sugar like a sandpaper, and over time it can just have your blades wear down a little bit faster. I'm not saying you're gonna have to replace your blades in a couple months. I'm just saying instead of the typical 5 years, you're gonna maybe look at 3 to 4 years when you gotta replace it. So those in the Italian ice industry have to replace their blades a little bit more than those that's in the ice cream industry. Don't have to fully dissolve the sugar, just get it nice and wet. So all we're putting it in here, right, was just the pureed apples, some Tyranny syrup, and this, right? And how much Tyranny syrup? All right, so let's do that. Let's get rid of this bottle. Maybe I should have opened this beforehand. So when you work with Italian ices, you don't have to have as much room in your cylinder as you would ice cream. Does anybody know why? Because it doesn't have any fat content. So when you talk about overrun and expansion, it only applies to dairy. Dairy has fat, fat equals expansion. When you work with Italian ice or dairy-free, water-based product, there is no expansion. A simple way to put it is if you were to take like heavy cream and put it in a bowl and whisk it really fast, you just made yourself homemade whipped cream, because the whipping cream has fat. If you were to take sugar and water or this and water and stick it in a bowl and whisk it real fast, nothing's going to happen. It's going to stay the same. So it has a little bit of expansion just because of the molecules freezing, but it's not going to double your product. So we can have a little bit more room. I'll let you guys pass that around. All right.
Hold off 1 second. The last thing Christy did was sanitize the machine. Is this machine ready to go? Does anybody see anything wrong? It's not. The door is open. It's going to go all over the floor. Always check that your door is closed.
So we're gonna.
All the fun.
I know I do, but I usually have to clean it up.
And did you sanitize because you're working with now ice instead of?
No, we didn't sanitize. We didn't open up the door. As long as human hands don't touch the parts, you don't have to sanitize. We just go on to another product. It's your hands that are contaminated. Everything else in here is all stainless steel. There's nothing to contaminate. So whether we switch from dairy to water, there's no contamination. It's all here. So don't take the door off. You don't have to sanitize.
Now we talked about freeze times. What did we just add? 2 pounds of sugar, some syrup, which is sugar. Apples have natural sugar, and the apple juice has sugar. So we just added sugar, 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 sugar. So this is going to take a little bit longer to freeze than a traditional ice cream. So I went ahead and I started my refrigeration. I don't need to sit there and let it run and let me taste it. I've already done it before. So I'm going to go ahead and get it started while I add my other stuff. You can do the same thing too. Instead of doing it like I did, you can pour your, oops, sorry, Jeff. You can put your juice or your water straight in there. Go ahead, turn that freezer on if you want, and start adding your stuff because it's not going to freeze that fast within the first minute or two. Any questions about Italian ice? Yes.
Will you skip the sugar since it already has sugar in the juice, sugar in the syrup, sugar in the apples? Why would you add more sugar?
Because the machine needs something to freeze. So if you didn't hear him, he wants to know why are you adding more sugar if everything already has sugar in it. So the machine still needs something. It's got to have a body. It's got to have some type of background to it to be able to freeze. If I were to just put the juice and stuff in there, it's going to freeze more like a slushy consistency. If we add that sugar to it, now the machine has something to hold and it's going to start to freeze. And it's going to give that really beautiful scooping texture. So a lot of people call and they go, I had the best Italian ice. It was so creamy, so smooth. Why was it so smooth? Because of sugar content. This is really high in sugar, so it's going to scoop so creamy and smooth. Your lemon Italian ice that just has sugar, water, and lemon juice, it's not going to be as creamy as this one is because the natural sugars from everything else that we added. If you want your lemon ice to scoop as well as this sour apple Italian ice, then you just add more sugar to that. You can add in this machine like a half a pound. If you're coming to this one, I would probably add another pound. So it really depends on also what you're making. It's a lot of fun. It's an art, like Jeff says, and it's a science.
The lemon ice is going to take about 13 minutes to freeze. I'm going to peg this one at 17 to 18 minutes because that Tyranny is just a bottle of pure sugar. This, as Christy said, is also sugar. There is so much sugar in here. It's going to have a tremendous flavor. If you left the sugar out, you'd have a bland product. A New York Italian ice in this machine uses 2 pounds of sugar. If I make a Philadelphia ice, which is smoother and creamier, it's going to be 2.5 pounds of sugar. And if I go up to Rhode Island, where they call it slush, it's not going to be 2.5 pounds. It's not going to be 2 pounds. It's going to be about 1.25 pounds, and it is so bland it has no taste. But they love it. So I can't knock it too much, but the sugar is controlling the freezing time, the texture, the smoothness, and the flavor. Without the sugar, you don't have a flavorful product.
Oops, sorry.
Yes?
Is there a minimum to how much you could put in either machine for like a batch? Like what if you only wanted to get 1 pint of ice cream out of the machine?
So when you work with the smaller models, there is no as minimal as you can do when it comes to dairy. It's pretty much the minimal is the maximum. The reason is if you don't put enough into the machine, it doesn't have enough product to actually freeze and churn. So it's just going to start sticking to the walls and to the blades. When you work with dairy, we talked about expansion. So you have to have at least 3.5 quarts of mix put into the machine, and you can't put any more than that because it's got to have room to freeze and expand. If you're running on a very slow setting, like a custard or a gelato, which is a very low overrun, then you can get away by putting 4 quarts in there because it doesn't need all that room to expand. When you work with non-dairy, like Italian ice or water-based products, or even a cream ice, also known as a sherbet, I say sherbet, you don't have to add, you can add a little bit more as well.
I make a flavor for myself because everyone steals my ice cream. Everybody on the factory floor, in the office. I make coffee banana ice cream. And I can do, on the bigger machines, I can do a half batch of that because I don't want that much coffee banana ice cream. But you really have to look at it a different way and say, unless you're experimenting or unless this is a one-off flavor, maybe the reason that you don't want to, that you're only making a half batch is nobody likes your flavor. It's a lousy flavor. If you're making bubblegum licorice ice cream and calling up and asking, can I make a half batch of it because it doesn't sell well, maybe you shouldn't be selling it. It sounds crazy, but it's a conundrum in business because I absolutely love coffee banana ice cream. Nobody else in this building does.
I didn't
So
feel it.
I should not be selling coffee banana ice cream in a store if I had one. So keep that in mind too, that if you're always making a half batch, maybe it's a flavor nobody likes. I was checking with Jeff, he agreed.
I agree with that. So to go back a little bit and talk about what can break down in the machine and what can't. Obviously this is an apple. You know, I peeled it, I sliced it, I tossed it in some lemon water to make sure it didn't brown before I got it pureed. So these are obviously very hard to break down. Cantaloupe is. Then you go to your blueberries, your strawberries, your watermelons. That is a softer type of texture, so it can break down and pulverize in the machine a lot better than something like this would. You know, like Jeff said with the canned pineapple, the canned apple pie filling. Those are pretty chunked apples. They're going to break down, but they're not going to break down to the consistency that he was looking for. So that's why he pureed them. This, it's an absolute necessity. Funny story. So, oh yes. A banana? So he asked about a banana. That's a lot of fun. You just peel that banana and you just slide that sucker right down in there and it'll mash that whole banana up. So one thing that Steve and I did find out that does not do anything in the machine was a whole pickle spear. So we made a dill pickle Italian ice. It's a huge seller in Texas, FYI. It's really good, and then we garnished it with, yes it is, we garnished it with a strip of bacon. So we used the Clausen pickles, the refrigeration. So Steve and I were trying to figure out how to do this, and we're like, all right, so we'll just slide that whole pickle spear in there and see what happens. So we did, and we kind of did a cutoff check. Nothing happened. Like, we don't see no pickles, you know. So then we took the door off, and there's all the pickle spears.
Just
you know,
rolling around
rolling
in there.
around in the that was a lot of fun.
The best part of that flavor was the bacon. The bacon was great.
No, it was really good. You can go to YouTube and type in on Emery Thompson machine the dill pickle Italian ice. We did an audience shot of everybody trying it. It was really good. Definitely a lot better than the ranch ice cream that I did. I had to get on the wagon. Everybody else was doing it.
Awful.
Ranch ice cream. It's awful. 0 out of 10
It's
recommend. It's horrible. But Van Leeuwen was, you know, it was this whole kick, and they were all making ranch ice cream. I was like, all right, that video's on Facebook. You'll see me in my kitchen at home making that ranch ice cream. It was terrible. I did the ranch powder packet is what I used. But you know what? That maybe a half batch is good for it. You stick a sign out on the road and the sidewalk, ranch ice cream. People might go, ew, or dill pickle Italian ice, but you know what? They might come in. Then they're not going to order that, but they're going to see that and come in and try it. You got a question?
I was gonna say, did you use like a ranch packet powder or?
It was Hidden Valley Ranch, the powder packets, and it was just straight dairy mix, and poured that in there. I think I used 2. It was bad. It's actually in that freezer if anybody is brave enough to have a little lick of it.
The only way you should ever sell it is if you have a sign that says "World's Worst Ice Cream."
Yes, I agree.
And then at least they can taste and say, "Yeah, you were right. It is the world's worst ice cream." You've heard Christy and I talk, and we rattle off these formulas. You know, we can just do it from heart. The lemon ice is 2 pounds of sugar, 4 quarts of water, and 3/4 of a quart of lemon juice. These recipes are at our website. We have over 600 YouTube videos. Now, the advantage of that, number one, is we give it all away for free. Every machine comes with lifetime technical support, free lifetime technical support. But that starts today. That doesn't start after you buy a machine. You can call up today and say, hey, how would I go about making this product? Now, there was a customer in the back who asked the question, what about experimenting? Well, if you've got the recipe for strawberry ice cream and at our website, and it tells you exactly what ingredients to put in, you now can also make blueberry, raspberry, mango, any of those fruits, because they're all fruits, they're all sweet, and so the mathematical formula which I go by is going to work for all of them. And then you take that mathematical formula and say, well, what if I add more water? Well, it's going to dilute the flavor. What if I add more sugar? It's going to make it sweeter. That's fine. I've got a sweet tooth, so I can play with the sugar. But I can't really play with the water because it's going to throw the recipe off. But if you know one type of product, like Oreo cookie, once you know how to make Oreo cookie, which is just the dairy blend, 3/4 of a bag of Oreo cookies and a little bit of vanilla. Once you know that, you can make chocolate chip cookie. You can make macaroon cookie, because you're still dealing with cookie. So you're not going to be spending hours and days trying to perfect another cookie formula. You've already got it by having done it once. And between Jeff's book, Christy has a wonderful book of a lot of recipes in it, and plus what we have at our website, we've got you covered. And then every one of you will go out and go into business like our 40,000 other customers in 171 countries, and you'll all have a different vanilla ice cream. You'll all have an Oreo cookie because you'll add your own personal creativity to it. That will be different from ours. But mathematically, it's going to work in the machine.
Absolutely, and I agree with that fully. A lot of people will ask, well, do I have to, with our formulas, they're free. Do I have to give you recognition, or can I change a recipe? Absolutely, make it your own. We don't need credit. We don't need any of that. Don't ask our permission. Take my recipe, botch it up. I don't care. Make it your own, In that book, there's over 100 recipes, and it's all broken down for each machine. So no matter which machine that you purchase, the math is already done for you, and the pages are writable as well. Getting a little ahead of the game, there is, if you go see Kendall in the front, she has a book that's open. If you wanted to finger through it, just kind of take a glance at it. If you'd like to purchase one, just go in the front and ask for Kendall. She'll definitely let you look through one, and you can purchase it with her as well. And then on the YouTube videos, you can go to there and just take notes. Those are also always for free. And you can always give me a call and ask anything that's on your mind. I've even had people don't know how to make something, or it's weird, or it's odd. Someone asked, how do you make ice cream with real bacon? I said, I don't know, but I'll find out. So that's what I did. I had my husband make bacon, and he candied it. He coated it in brown sugar and baked it in the oven, and I made maple bacon ice cream, and that's in the book as well. Amazing. It was amazing. So is my feedback to the customer. So we're here to help too. So if you have a question, you don't know something for certain, will this work or that work? You never know. Steve and I might know of a customer that already has done it, and we can tell you, yes, we know it works. I can figure it out for you, or we can just kind of work it out together and go from there. So we're at 12 and a half minutes, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to still be a little soupy because, like Steve said, it's full of sugar.
It's going to 17.
It's not too bad.
No, not too bad.
I'm going to say about 15, 16, about what Steve said. But also keep in mind, too, that the machine sat for a minute or two, so it got, room temperature again. If this was already cold and you're on your fourth batch of sour apple Italian ice, it's not going to take that amount of time every single time. Yes, sir?
Grease trap. Is there need for grease trap in your business?
No. Oh, go ahead. You're more on that one.
That unfortunately is my bailiwick, is the grease trap. It's the latest thing in opening up a business that all the different states, it's the first thing I hear about is they want a grease trap. Well, the health department, their idea of a grease trap is somewhere around $25,000, because that's what they put into McDonald's, where they're pouring 55 gallons of drum down the drain, and they want a grease trap for it because they're doing all those French fries. When they tell you that you need a grease trap, look up on Amazon, find a $300 grease trap, print it out, and just say, this is what I'm buying for the grease trap. I used to argue with them and say, if I'm throwing dairy down the drain, I'm losing money. I'm not putting any fat down the drain. Until I realized that isn't what they're trying to do. They don't care about what's going down the drain. They care about their checklist and checking off grease trap, 3-compartment sink, stainless steel tables. So you don't need a $30,000 grease trap. It's going to waste. But spend the $300, put the grease trap in, and never have to be bothered by the health department again. It's really that, unfortunately, that simple. But someone writes an article, it spreads around through these health departments, and then they say, oh, that's something new for us to look for. It's unfortunately ridiculous.
How about the floor? Is there any required?
A what?
The floor and your walls. Is it for
Sure, you talk to the health department, and I tell people, interrupt me if I get too close.
I think we're still okay.
Okay. They have a big book of rules and regulations, and they can keep you out of business. So you have to be smarter than them. You sit down with the health department, you bring a notepad, and anytime you talk to them, you have a notepad. And let's call the inspector Phil. Phil, the inspector, says, I need dairy tile walls, I need dairy tile floors, and you write that down, and then you call up Christy or me or Jeff, and we say, well, you know what, is that floor concrete? Sure is. Well, how about we spend $87 and seal it with Rust-Oleum two-stage epoxy paint? It seals it perfectly. Before you do it, you talk to Phil. Hey, Phil, can I do a two-stage epoxy paint instead of a $10,000 tile floor? He goes, yeah, sure, why not? We write down, on this date, Phil said okay. Now, when Phil's boss comes in a month to do the final inspection, remember, he taught Phil. And the boss goes, what's with this floor? Who approved that? Oh, Phil did on October 14th. Well, I taught Phil, so the boss taught Phil, so I'm not going to go against my own employee. So you can find less expensive ways to do it, but the bottom line is you have to work with them. So find out what the rules are, and then look if there's alternatives to putting up a $5,000 dairy tile walls. You can put up a washable surface instead, and that's important. Yes?
I feel like the machines are workhorses, right? And let's say like we're in Boston and if something goes wrong, who services things?
We do. You call us first. We have 7-day-a-week service, and this is not shipped off to somewhere outside of the state of Florida. It's right here. In fact, if you call at 8:30 at night, we go from 8 in the morning till 9 at night, 7 days a week. If you call at 8:30 at night, you're actually going to get me on the phone because nobody else is crazy enough to work those hours except me. And if you say, hey, I want to order some O-rings, I'm going to say, great. Please call us in the morning, and Michaela will assist you because there's nothing I can do about O-rings at 8:30 Sunday night. If you say my machine just went down, I'll ask you a series of questions, and there's a good 95% chance we'll have you running in 5 minutes because somebody put something in backwards. More and more I'm hearing that the owner isn't making the ice cream, but we hired a really great person. Well, did you teach the really great person that the blades have to go in a certain direction? Because if you didn't, it's going to freeze up. If we had to change out a switch or a control, you call us and we will use a local person in your area. We have the best service of any company in the industry.
All right, it's going to be a very pretty green. This is amazing flavor, especially for the holidays like October.
No, beautiful.
You have like a max hours of operating per machine, or can they run 24/7?
Yeah, the max hours is when you get exhausted and quit.
Okay.
The machine can run 24 hours a day, and on average, an Emery Thompson lasts 40 years. You'll give out long before it does. But you're going to call me, and you're going to say, oh, I'm running this thing 18 hours a day. What do I do? And I'm going to say, buy a hardening cabinet. What? If I'm running the machine 18 hours a day, yeah, but you have nowhere to put the ice cream, so you can't run it 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So your next step is a hardening cabinet. And then after you exhaust that, and you need to actually get some time off, then you move up to a bigger machine. When we first put you into business, Christy and I are working to get you into business for the lowest amount of money possible. Usually somewhere around $50,000 to outfit a complete store. I used to do $200,000 stores, but people don't have money. And our audience has gotten much younger, and they don't have the lines of credit yet. So we start with this, the CB350, and then you'll tell us when you need the 24 quart. But by the time you do, you're making so much money because you're running it 18 hours a day that it's going to be, hey, how soon can I get an Emery Thompson 24 quart? You call anybody else, they're going to tell you 11 to 18 months. We're going to tell you 3 weeks. And at worst, for the biggest machine, 4 weeks. Nobody can do that except us.